Do you think your car costs $20,000? If you do, you might be looking at the wrong number, because the day you bring a car home, the spending doesn't end. In a strange way, that's when a whole new list of expenses begins. And the funny thing is, most of those expenses are invisible on day one. Many new cars lose 20 to 30% of their value in the first year alone. That means a $20,000 car could quietly destroy $4,000 to $6,000 of value within a single year. And the shocking part? This isn't bad luck. This isn't a rare case. This happens every day. But honestly, that's still not the biggest problem. Because a car doesn't just take money. It takes future options too. Today we're going to look at how a normal middle-class car can quietly take tens of thousands of dollars from your future over the next 5 years. And if you already own a car, we'll also talk about how to reduce some of that damage. Hidden cost number 1, depreciation. When people buy a car, they usually focus on one number, the price. $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. But very few people stop and ask, what will this car actually be worth 5 years from now? And honestly, I never used to ask that question either. Because when you're buying a car, you're looking at the car, not the future. But depreciation doesn't care about that. It doesn't care how much you love the car, how carefully you drive it, or how often you wash it. Depreciation keeps showing up every year anyway. And that's what makes it dangerous. It doesn't hit you all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, so you never really feel the pain. The value just keeps slipping away in the background. Think about that for a second. You're making monthly payments, and at the exact same time, the value of the car is going down. Most people never notice it, because they're driving the car, not checking what it's worth. And if the car is financed, the situation becomes even more interesting, because now the value is falling. While you're paying interest too, one side is losing value. The other side is costing interest. One asset, two different ways of losing money. So what's the solution? If you already own the car, the biggest mistake is upgrading too quickly, because depreciation hits hardest during the early years. The longer you keep a reliable vehicle, the more you spread that damage over time. But depreciation doesn't come alone. It has a close friend. And that friend shows up almost every single month. Hidden cost number 2, fuel. Let me ask you something. Do you know exactly how much you've spent on fuel over the last 12 months? The exact number? Probably not. And that's exactly what makes fuel so dangerous. Nobody gets shocked filling up the tank. It's usually $40, $60, maybe $80. It never feels like a big expense. And that's the trap. Because fuel never arrives as one painful bill. It arrives in small pieces. Again, and again, and again, until one day, you finally add everything together. Let's say fuel costs you around $250 a month. Sounds normal. Nothing dramatic. But over 5 years, that's about $15,000. Just fuel. And I think that's where most people get caught off guard. Because they see the fuel pump. They never see the 5-year total. So what's the solution? For the next 30 days, track every dollar you spend on fuel. Don't change anything. Don't drive less. Don't optimize anything. Just track it. Because sometimes awareness is the first financial upgrade. And if fuel sounds expensive, the next hidden cost might surprise you even more. Hidden cost number 3, insurance. Insurance is one of those expenses that people rarely think about, until renewal day arrives. You pay it, forget about it, and move on with life. Then next year, it comes back. And the year after that, it comes back again. Imagine if someone knocked on your door once a year and said, "I need another $1, $200. Then came back next year. And the year after that. Suddenly it feels expensive. But because insurance arrives only once or twice a year, most people never feel its true weight. They remember the car payment. They remember the fuel. But insurance quietly keeps taking its share, year after year. And before you realize it, 5 years have gone by, and thousands of dollars are gone. Not because something bad happened, simply because ownership has a cost. So what's the solution? Every renewal period. Compare policies. Most people don't. They stay with the same company for years. Not because it's cheaper, but because it's easier. And sometimes convenience quietly becomes expensive. But insurance is still predictable. The next hidden cost is different, because it usually shows up when you're least expecting it. Hidden cost number 4, maintenance. Nobody buys a car because they're excited about replacing tires, or brake pads, or batteries, or suspension parts. Those things never appear in the advertisement. Nobody posts pictures of their new brake pads online. But eventually, every car asks for them. And that's the part many people forget. When we buy a car, we imagine the driving, not the maintenance. We imagine road trips, not repair bills. And then one day, you take the car in for a routine service, and suddenly there's a list. Tires, brakes, battery, something else. And the bill is much larger than expected. Not because anyone tricked you. Because ownership is different from buying. The showroom price was never the full story. It was only the first chapter. So what's the solution? Create a car fund. Even a small amount every month helps. Because repairs don't feel painful when you're prepared for them. They feel painful when they arrive as a surprise. And unfortunately, maintenance isn't the end of the story either. Because there are costs that don't look important at all, until years go by. Hidden cost number 5, parking, tolls, and small fees. Let me ask you something. Have you ever paid for parking and immediately forgotten about it? Most people have. A few dollars here, a few dollars there, a toll road, a registration fee, a city charge. None of them feel serious. That's exactly why they're dangerous. Because nobody sits down and says, "I spent too much money on parking this year." The amounts are too small to notice. But they're also too frequent to ignore. And over 5 years, those tiny charges can quietly turn into thousands of dollars. Not because any single payment was large, but because small costs repeated enough times eventually become large costs. And that's something many people don't realize until they add everything together. So what's the solution? The next time you calculate the cost of your car, don't stop at the monthly payment. Add the things nobody likes to count. Parking, tolls, registration, road fees. Because the most expensive costs are often the ones hiding in plain sight. And even after all of this, we still haven't talked about one of the most unpredictable costs of all. Hidden cost. Number 6, accident risk. There's another cost that almost nobody calculates. Accidents. And honestly, that makes sense. Because nobody buys a car expecting to crash it. Nobody sits in a dealership and says, "Let me calculate what happens if something goes wrong." We assume everything will be fine. Most of the time, it is. But sometimes it isn't. A distracted driver, a slippery road, someone backing into your car in a parking lot, a moment of bad luck. And suddenly, you're dealing with repairs, insurance paperwork, phone calls, lost time, unexpected stress, and sometimes higher insurance premiums for years afterward. The interesting thing is, people usually think of accidents as rare events, but the financial risk is always there. Even on days when nothing happens, that's part of what you're paying for. So what's the solution? You can't predict an accident, but you can prepare for one. A dedicated emergency fund won't stop an accident from happening, but it can stop a bad day from becoming a financial disaster. And while accidents create visible costs, the next hidden cost is much harder to see. Hidden cost number 7, ownership anxiety. You might recognize this one. You buy the car, and for a while, everything feels great. Then, something strange happens. You start worrying about things you never worried about before. A shopping cart in a parking lot, a tight parking space, a small scratch, a tiny dent, someone opening their door too close to yours. And suddenly, things that never mattered before start bothering you. Not because you're irrational, because now you own something valuable. And the more expensive the vehicle becomes, the more attention it seems to demand. A small scratch on an old car might be annoying. The same scratch on a newer car can ruin your entire day. And that's an ownership cost nobody talks about. Not a financial cost. An emotional one. Because sometimes you're not just driving the car anymore. You're protecting it, watching it, worrying about it. And while that doesn't appear on a bank statement, it's still part of ownership. But now we get to what might be the biggest hidden cost of all. Hidden cost number 8, opportunity cost. Up until now, we've been talking about costs that send you a bill. Fuel, insurance, maintenance, repairs. But there's one cost that never sends a bill. And that's probably why so many people ignore it. Opportunity cost. Let's say you spend an extra $10,000 on a vehicle, maybe a higher trim level, maybe a more expensive model, maybe features you didn't really need. Now here's the question. What else could that $10,000 have done? And this is where things get interesting. Because you'll never know. You'll never see the version of your future that didn't buy the car. You'll never see the investments that could have grown, the opportunities that could have appeared, the financial flexibility that could have existed. That future never happened. And that's what makes opportunity cost so easy to ignore. Because unlike fuel, there's no receipt. Unlike insurance, there's no bill. Unlike repairs, there's no invoice. Nothing arrives in the mail. Nothing appears in your banking app. And yet, the impact can be enormous. Because your car doesn't just take money. It takes future options too. And that's the part many people never calculate. Not what the money costs today. What the money could have become tomorrow. The loss happens in two directions. The money leaves, and the future growth never arrives. And that's why opportunity cost is often the most expensive hidden cost of all. By the way, if you enjoy these kinds of hidden financial insights, consider subscribing. Because on this channel, we don't just talk about making money. We talk about the things that quietly take money away. And unfortunately, there's still one final trap left. The one that keeps this entire cycle running. The upgrade cycle. And just when you think the spending is finally over, something interesting happens. A newer model appears. A bigger screen. Updated technology. A redesigned interior. A few extra features. And suddenly, the car that felt perfect a few years ago starts feeling old. Not because it stopped working. Not because it became unreliable. but because something newer arrived. You've probably experienced this before. Maybe not with a car. Maybe with a phone, a laptop, or something else. The moment a newer version appears, the old version somehow feels less exciting. And that's where many people restart the entire cycle. A new loan, new depreciation, new insurance costs, new ownership costs, again, and again, and again, and again. The interesting part is, the car often isn't the problem. The car still works. The problem is that satisfaction quietly expires before the vehicle does. So what's the solution? Before upgrading, ask yourself one question. Am I solving a real problem? Or am I replacing something that already works? That single question can save thousands of dollars. Because sometimes the smartest financial decision isn't buying something new. It's keeping something useful. The 5-year reality check. Now let's step back for a moment, because this is where the numbers start telling a different story. Over 5 years, you've paid for depreciation, fuel, insurance, maintenance, parking, tolls, registration fees, unexpected repairs, and you've carried the financial risk of ownership the entire time. Then there's opportunity cost, the hidden cost that never sends a bill. When you add everything together, something becomes clear. You didn't just buy a car. You signed up for an entire financial ecosystem. And that's why so many people know exactly what their car cost, but have no idea what their car is actually costing them. Because the purchase price is easy to see. The lifetime cost isn't. So what if you already own a car? At this point, some of you might be thinking, okay, I already own the car. Now what? And honestly, that's the right question. Because this video isn't about making you regret your purchase. Most people watching this probably already own a vehicle. The goal isn't regret. The goal is awareness. Because awareness gives you options. You don't have to sell your car. You don't have to stop enjoying it. You don't have to treat every purchase like a mistake. But you can reduce the damage going forward. Keep the car longer. Delay unnecessary upgrades. Track your fuel spending. Prepare for maintenance before it arrives. Build assets alongside the car. Because while you can't change money you've already spent, you can still influence where the next dollar goes. And over time, those decisions matter more than most people realize. This video wasn't meant to convince you that cars are bad. Cars can be useful. For many people, they're necessary. The real point is much simpler than that. Most people calculate the purchase price. Very few people calculate the lifetime cost. And that small difference in thinking can create a very big difference in results. Because the most expensive part of owning a car is often the part nobody sees. So let me ask you a question. What do you think is the most dangerous hidden cost of owning a car? Depreciation? Fuel? Or opportunity cost? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading every answer. And if you found this video helpful, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who thinks their car only costs what they paid for it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.